Imagine pouring hours into the most important essay of your entire academic career. You stayed up all night carefully doing the research, perfectly having those MLA citations, and carefully editing every single paragraph to make sure that your grammar is flawless. You finally hit submit, completely proud of your hard work. But the next moment, instead of a triumphant like 100%, you get an email from your university academic integrity board telling you that you got a zero and you're facing expulsion. But why? Because a faceless algorithmic AI detector decided that your writing was simply too good to be human. For the last 2 years, this dystopian nightmare has ruined the academic careers of thousands of innocent students. Massive edtech monopolies like Turnitin and also I think Proctorio have made absolute bank, selling these completely broken, unproven AI detector software to schools all over the world. But today, the scam is, facing some issues because over the last few weeks, students have completely, stopped complaining and they have started suing. We're currently watching the entire air detector empire absolutely, panic in federal court, and massive global universities are completely panicking as well. Today, we break down the massive Stanford study that proved these detectors are a scam, the federal lawsuits filed by furious students, and why the era of school AI software is officially coming to a highly embarrassing end. Also, Stanford, by the way, please accept me. To understand why this technology is currently imploding, you have to look at the massive lie that these corporations told the education system. When ChatGPT first launched, teachers and school administrators completely panicked, which honestly did make sense. When you see the dumbest students writing Shakespearean type essays, bro, I think that's a valid panic right there. And smelling blood in the water, companies like Turnitin rushed to the market with supposed miracle cures. They aggressively sold schools an AI detection tool that they proudly claimed was around 98% accurate, with less than a 1% false positive rate. They essentially told universities if our software flags a student, they are absolutely guilty. But that was a complete corporate fabrication. The truth about how these detectors work underneath the hood is actually horrifying. They don't actually read your essay and they don't compare it to a database of AI generated text. Instead, they just run a cold mathematical scan looking for two things, perplexity and also burstiness. So I think I've explained this before, but pretty much perplexity measures how predictable your word choices are, and burstiness measures the variation in your sentence length. So if you write with highly structured, formal, and grammatically correct English, oftentimes the detector will automatically assume that you are a robot. The software literally punishes you for being a good writer. And if you use a tool like Grammarly to fix a comma, it flags you. That's actually happened to me once in school. If you write a perfectly structured thesis statement, it flags you. The only way to consistently bypass the AI detector as a human is to literally dumb down your own writing and make intentional spelling mistakes and use terrible grammar. That's very counterproductive. But this fundamentally broken system is more than an annoyance because it's also you can say discriminatory, and the math proves it. Pretty much a massive peer-reviewed study out of Stanford, once again please accept me, completely ripped the mask off the AI detection industry. The researchers ran perfectly original human-written essays through the top AI detectors on the market, but they separated the essays by demographic. So, for example, students born in the US who speak, English as their first language, the false positive rate was under 10%, okay? But for international students and also students who, speak English as a second language, the ESL students are known as that, the AI detectors falsely flagged their completely original work a pretty big, around 61% of the time. Let that sink in. If you're a non-native English speaker, you have a greater than coin flip chance of being falsely accused of cheating by a robot. Just because you probably naturally write in a more formal academic tone to ensure your English is correct. The Stanford researchers concluded that these detectors actively potentially discriminate against non-native speakers, creating a pretty big bias that is could potentially ruin the lives of innocent students. And the bias doesn't stop there because we are now seeing a massive wave of federal lawsuits and legal action regarding those who are neurodivergent. Because right now there's a highly publicized like legal action surrounding students, I think with like OCD, anxiety, and like autism spectrum disorders who are being pretty much relentlessly like targeted by these algorithms. Because these neurodivergent like people, they often, I would say, rely on like highly structured, like rigid and like formulaic like writing patterns to organize their thoughts, like Turnitin software mathematically, flags them as too consistently average to be human. Like, for example, at Adelphi University and the University of Michigan, cases have erupted where students like provided literal like Google Doc like edit histories, timestamped drafts, and also like browser logs, proving that they wrote their essays from scratch. But the university administrators and like the professor, they just ignored that hard evidence, choosing instead to blindly trust like the AI software. Like they told the students that the algorithm's decision was final, which is pretty arrogant. Like blind faith in broken technology has pushed the student body to some annoyance. And also one of the people in the lawsuit, I think her name's like Orion Newby, like that's one niche name. Actually, it should be Orion, okay, but that's not relevant. But gamers and students are no longer just taking the L. Like they're not ranting like online or begging the professors for a second chance. They're bringing in the lawyers, and they are actually like winning in court against like these companies in a legal arena. The argument in federal court is pretty brilliant and you could say bulletproof as well. Lawyers are arguing that because Turnitin and other like detector companies completely refuse to, reveal exactly how their algorithm like actually works, claiming it as a quote unquote trade secret, their software cannot be legally used as evidence to expel a student. Like if university cannot explain exactly why the AI flagged a paper, it's probably like a violation of a student's like due process and shouldn't be like punished for that. Furthermore, like various organizations are stepping in, citing that Stanford study to argue that using AI detectors is like a potential violation of like the Title 6 discrimination laws because it mathematically targets like international and ESL students. When you start threatening, universities with massive multi-million dollar federal potential discrimination like lawsuits, like that's a problem. Like they stop caring about what Turnitin has to say. Like the corporate panic happening behind the scenes right now is, I would say, glorious to watch. They're realizing that they are sitting on a massive like landmine of legality. Some of the most prestigious colleges on the United States, for example, are pulling the plug. Like for example, Vanderbilt University, I think also UT Austin as well as Northwestern. Northwestern, please accept me as well, and also like I think like Waterloo as well. These are some that I've heard that are pretty much like disabling like the AI detection software. In their official public statements, universities admitted that the technology is fundamentally like unreliable, biased, and also unsafe for academic use. Sounds a little bit late. The house of cards is collapsing, and graduate students at the University of I think it's like Buffalo, I think. Like they organized, petitions to force the administration to drop the software, citing cases where students were literally like, blocked from graduating due to false AI flags. Like the cultural and legal tide has, definitely turned. For the last 2 years, you could say, tech monopolies had tried to convince the world that AI is a flawless, omnipotent God that can seamlessly moderate our lives, read our texts, and police our schools. But the reality is that generative AI is just a predictive text algorithm, and the quote-unquote detectors built to catch it are nothing more than digital snake oil. Turnitin tried to play judge, jury, and executioner with the academic case of millions of students, and they did it using broken, like discriminatory AI. But they definitely underestimated like the resilience of students who want a good essay grade. Like we are witnessing a massive victory for privacy and also student rights. Like by dragging these edtech companies into the light of a courtroom and demanding like actual proof, students have mathematically dismantled like the potential illusion of the AI detector. Like universities that are still clinging to the software are living on borrowed time. Like it's more of a question of if these AI detectors will be banned globally, but also like potentially when. The era of school spyware flying under the radar is definitely over. Like students are actually smart now. So yeah, I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. Have you or anyone have been falsely flagged by AI detector at your school? I will tell you, I have my own experience. So I do like this one like seminar class, and I use Grammarly to like help me like edit one of my seminar papers, like grammatical corrections. I got flagged, so I had to explain to my teacher at like 7 in the morning before school, show all my history, like yo, I'm not using AI. And like she did believe me, so that was chill. But in some situations, there's times where the teacher just does not believe you. So yeah. Anyways, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.